We're on page 344, Seif Bet, Maran, Kuf Samech. You'll recall that we did a Gemara last week, discussing the machloket of the Gemara, whether or not to say Hamotzi lechem min haaretz or Motzi lechem min haaretz. We're discussing whether it's past tense or present tense or future tense. Maran rules Yivarech Hamotzi lechem min haaretz. The conclusion ultimately is that we say Hamotzi lechem min haaretz. Haga says there are mavim rabim mesubim, and there are many people at the meal. Yichavnu libam lishmoa barchav yanu amen. If there are many people at the table, they should all have in mind to listen to the bracha of the man who's making hamotzi. V'amvarech yichaven la'amen shomrim. And the one who's blessing should have in mind a kavanat amen. He should have in mind that the amen that they're saying is also for him as well. By the way, I said man, it can be a woman too, meaning hamotzi. There's a group of ladies that are having a meal. It's in this situation, there's an idea of having one person making hamotzi lechem min haaretz for everybody. There are some places that you go where everybody makes their own hamotzi. Until today, I don't understand this minhag. I don't know where it comes from. I don't know why somebody would do that. It's like everyone making their own kiddush.
Take a while.
Yeah, it takes a while. That's true. A lot of unnecessary brachot that are happening. When I am offered to make my own kiddush at someone's house, I always decline. Unless I feel either that they really want me to make a kiddush, so in that regard it's honoring the balabait to make kiddush, or sometimes you're in a situation where the balabait does not know how to make kiddush properly. In which case it's important that you make your own kiddush, because what can you do? The person doesn't know how to make kiddush correct. And says Maran, V'iten revach ben lechem uven min. And you should separate hamotzi lechem min haaretz. Between the lechem ends with the mem, and min begins with mem, you should make sure there's a space there. It shouldn't be hamotzi lechem min. Rather, hamotzi lechem min haaretz. So let's look at the halachot of the Bible. Mevarech al hapat hamotzi lechem min haaretz. On bread, you make a blessing of hamotzi lechem min haaretz. V'tzarich lomar hamotzi b'hei. You have to say hamotzi with the hey. Again, this is back to the argument with Gemara whether it's a hamotzi or a motzi. Uvdiavad, and if after the fact imamar motzi below hey, if you say motzi and not hamotzi, yatzai dechova. You fulfilled your obligation nonetheless, even though that's not the conclusion of the Chachamim, but nonetheless, it's okay if you say motzi lechem min haaretz. V'tzarich lafsik mat. You must make a little break ben tevat lechem leben tevat min, between the words lechem and min, kedei shelo tivla mem v'nishma k'tiva echad, so that the mem is not swallowed and it sounds like one word. Keteva echad, sorry. It sounds like one word. ולפי דעת רבינו הארי, and according to the teachings of the Arizal, יש להאריך מעט בעוד hey. You have to extend the pronunciation of the word hey. של תיבת המוציא. Why? In the sources he tells you go look up the Kafachai. It seems to be, according to Kabbalah, that inside of this hey is hiding another hey. The first hey is the hey of Bina, the second hey is the hey of Malchut. And you should have in mind to influence the Malchut with the Hey of the Bina. Got it? Exactly. That's the opinion of the Arizal. If you're a Kabbalist, you should know what to do with this information. If not, so just say your Hey properly.
Hey.
Many people tell me they're Mekubalim, they're Kabbalists, they're this one, they're involved in Kabbalah. Okay, so I would like them to sit here and explain to us what does Arizal mean that there's two Heys. And one is the hay of Malchut, and one is the hay of Bina, and what does it have to do with bread in the first place? I would love to hear them explain it to me.
Guest lecture.
They can explain it to me? Yeah, we're giving you a stamp of your Mekuba.
Residence.
Until then, go take your fake gematrias elsewhere. Kavanat Shomea Umash. I've met real Mekubalim. You can argue whether Kabbalah is a discipline one should involve themselves in or not. There's much debate about that. But I've met people who they've truly made their life from understanding the concepts of the Mekubalim. And I met more people than that for every 10 people I met who's a Mekubal, half of the one is a Mekubal. Really a Mekubal. I don't know what to tell you about that.
It's a world you can't make mistakes. Because you make one mistake, the whole structure.
No, I'm saying here, and I'm not even talking about mistakes. I'm talking about mindless people who don't know what they're talking about. They claim to be Mekubalim because they know how to juggle some numbers and twist some letters, and this sounds like that, and the matcha of this, the acronym of that. That's not Kabbalah. That's somebody was bored. Kabbalah is a discipline. Like I said, there are many who argue the discipline of Kabbalah is from outside of Judaism. There are many who argue that it's the only thing that Judaism really has over any other religion. I'm not here to stick my head down that, but at least when someone says, I teach Kabbalah, so then they should be able to answer a few basic questions. Like why we say the Hamotzi longer and Hamotzi Lechavin Aretz. If they can. So stop invoking the word Kabbalah. It's not like if somebody says, oh, I'm a halachist. Okay. How many times do you wash your hands in the morning? Oh, I don't know. Well, then you're not a halachist. I mean, that's the first thing you have to study if you're studying Shulchan Aruch, no? And if you don't purport to be a halachist, you don't have to have the answer to all those questions, but these are simple questions. First Lubavitcher Rebbe, Alav Shalom, when he made his Siddur, so notoriously they took whatever kavanot of the Arizal, whatever things wants to meditate on from the Arizal, and they plugged it into the Siddur. And there were many, they say he went through 60 nusachs on the Arizal. I'm not here to now. Bottom line, when I look at the Chabad Siddur, it's a very Kabbalistically inclined Ashkenazi Siddur. It's not it doesn't, okay, fine. When you look there are no Kabbalistic meditations in the Siddur.
Right.
And the famous question to the first Lubavitcher, why do you put the Kabbalistic meditations in the Siddur? There's supposed to be all kinds of letters and codes, and it says, if you're a Kabbalist, then you don't need me to write it up for you, what you should be meditating on between every letter, between every word. You should know that by heart. And if you need me to write it down for you, then you shouldn't be meditating on such things. And I think that's a proper attitude to have. You're a real Mekubal, so you don't need charts and reminders on how to meditate properly. And if you are not a real Mekubal, so why are you pretending?
Is the Kabbalah Center Siddur a legit Siddur?
It's a fantastic question. I have no idea. I'm not a Mekubal. But most of what the Kabbalah Center printed in terms of their Hebrew literature, not their English literature, their Hebrew literature, is a really bad just snatch and grab of somebody else's copyrighted information and republished with their own covers.
Rabbi Ashland?
Yeah, mostly Rabbi Ashland stuff. That's mostly. And
The Siddur uses a
curiously,
certain
they use it's to make it look like a Torah script. Some Kabbalists like
right.
that. They're using a generic Sephardic Siddur. And those Siddurim, believe it or not, have I have a few copies of them in my house. I collect books from different organizations. I see other people's houses, I see books they shouldn't have, I buy them for them. So in the Kabbalah Center Siddurim, they have Haskamot from the Badatz, the Eidah Haredit of Jerusalem.
So does the bank, right?
What?
So do the bank Sidurs, the like Mizrahi Bank and the
but these are
Bank Apolim.
well, those are different. Those are Siddurim. You're some banks. You're a high class customer. They'll send you a box of chocolates or something. Here in Israel, they send you a Siddur, a Tanakh, or something like that. And those are fine. Banks printing Siddurim. It's an interesting situation. But here it's the Kabbalah Center with their commentaries, getting Haskamot from some of the big names in Jerusalem.
Wow. Why?
Because
They
I
paid.
can't say it on camera, but you think that very big people don't make mistakes, but they make the big mistakes. There's a clown here in town running around pretending he's a rabbi. And what he has to back it up is all kinds of videos he got from people in Israel calling him, oh, the great rabbi, the honorable rabbi, is a rabbi. He's a rabbi, and my shoe is the Pope. But it's a certain thing, because you can say whatever you want, do whatever you want. And there are big people, and there are big names that are saying, no, the big name, what do they know? It's very scary, because you assume you rely on the things that big people tell you. But unfortunately, it's not a world that it used to be. People get lied to, and they believe those lies, and the people around them have all kinds of agendas, and Hashem Yishmor. When I was in Israel, there was a certain rally that was made, and Rabbi Yashiv rallied everyone together, and people were trying to pressure Rabbi Peretz to send her yeshiva, and he said no. I said, why not? He said, first, I don't believe Rabbi Yashiv said it. He said, even if Rabbi Yashiv said it, he's wrong. I don't understand why it was making such a commotion.
What are they saying? He said that to shutter the yeshiva? Or to...
No, they were sending out all these people to riot in the streets, and Rabbi Yashiv orders. And he doesn't believe today everything that they next to him they put his symbol on it, which should tell you that you should be wary about things that come from the big names of big rabbis. And then Rav also listen, even if Rabbi Yashiv said it, it's still wrong. So it doesn't make a difference either way we would go.
A lot of forgery.
But unfortunately, there's a lot of this that happens. Chacham Yosef, and it was like tremendous perversion of justice that happened in his life. A lot of things put out in his name. People he trusted who misled him. You have videos of him crying over being misled by different people. You have people who beg to have audiences with him. And then there's people around him wouldn't let them in the house anymore. And whatever strategically was supposed to be happening in order to... He was in the hospital. There were certain rabbis that were very close to him. They wanted to visit him, and the family wouldn't let them come because they knew that they were runner-ups to take his place. And they wanted somebody else to take his place. All kinds of crazy things like that.
Intrigue.
And it makes you wonder, so what do you need? What do I have this already in politics, but I need it now also in the Rabbanut. I need rabbis who are like that too. It means it's not appealing. I mean, some people are really excited about it, but it's really not appealing. Kavanat shomea umashmiya bevacha. The kavanot, the thought, the intentions that one has to have, both the one who's making the blessing and one who's listening to the blessing. Let me say before I tell you anything here. It's a good habit for you to take upon yourself that every time you make a bracha and you make it out loud, that you should always have in mind every bracha that I say out loud. When I say it out loud, I'm having in mind to fulfill anyone who's hearing it the bad English sentence structure. But whoever is hearing my bracha, I'm having in mind to fulfill their obligation with my bracha.
Which means that's very clear.
Yes, but more that it's your kavanah, because if it's very clear and they hear it, but you were only intending to bless for yourself, they can't fulfill their obligation with that. And if you go to someone's house and they make kiddush out loud, but they don't know that they're saying kiddush for you, it doesn't make a difference that you listen and say amen. That kiddush doesn't count for you. They have to have in mind that they're saying kiddush for everybody here at the table. Yes?
Yeah.
You also have another element to this, which is the people who are listening. If they don't know what you're doing, or they don't know why you're saying kiddush out loud, or they're not sure why you're making this, if they don't have in mind that you're saying the bracha for them, they also are not included in your bracha. So you should have in mind, whenever I say kiddush, or sometimes it happens, I say kiddush on Shabbat, and someone runs in quickly from the bathroom or something. They just get in there for the gefen. Do they count for my kiddush or not? So I always tell them, I had kavanah for whoever is going to hear my bracha. Even if you were hiding behind the mechitza, I have a kavanah for you. But I can't tell you if you had kavanah that I'm saying a bracha. That's already your problem. But you should have, in general, you should train yourself that whenever you say brachot aloud. For this helps also. Sfirat ha'omer. Some people forget the bracha, and you're the chazan, or you're the one saying a bracha next to them. And so I'm saying a bracha. In case the person next to me needs a bracha, I don't have to talk to them. Every bracha that I say is meant to include other people in it.
Is the word kavanah always spelled this way, with the two double vav?
It could be the one that's spelled in Hebrew with vowels that it's not.
Because I never saw it like that.
Yeah, it's because it's Hebrew without the vowels. So oftentimes when you have vowels in a word, kind of like...
It's not kavanah, it's kavana.
What do you mean? Say that.
Well, kavana or
no.
kavanah. So there's two.
Kavanat, yeah, shomea.
There's two.
Don't get carried away. How do you spell the word mitzvot?
You mean transliterated?
No, in Hebrew. Mem.
Mem.
Tzadi.
Tzadi. Vav.
Yud.
Oh. You mean, is there a dot or is it a vav again?
Mem, tzadi, vav, taf.
Yeah. So.
But when you don't have vowels, that word also spells matzot.
Oh.
So how do you tell the difference between matzot and mitzvot? You add another vav to let you know that one vav is the v and one vav is the o.
So when you don't have vowels, you add the extra.
Yeah, sometimes you do that with yud also. Like you'll see people whose name, I'm thinking of a name. It's funny, you may not normally see this, but David, the name David,
Yeah.
is spelled Dalid, Vav, Dalid. Sometimes without vowels, it's spelled Dalid Vav Yud Dalid,
Oh,
to show you that it's a David. Yeah, that's what the Yud is there doing. So you have that a lot in Hebrew. And written, we call it a full spelling or not full spelling. Meaning if it has vowels, then you could take away certain letters. If it doesn't have vowels, you have to add an extra letter.
okay.
Not always. Like
That's
sometimes,
fascinating.
Yeah.
sometimes
Yeah, I
Hava
mean,
Peretz
I
writes
never-
even without vowels the way if vowels were there. Sometimes he doesn't. It depends on what you get used to.
I've just learned something. Thank
Yeah.
you.
Yeah. That's an important question. The second vav is silent. It's there only as a vowel.
Right,
Yeah.
yeah,
There's the cholam as a o.
yeah. It's just strange. You're not used to saying it that way.
So im mevarech berkat hamotzi. If you make the blessing of hamotzi, kedei lehotzi et hashomim midei chova. I will tell you, if I'm not mistaken, that in the Tanakh, David is also spelled with Yud sometimes, meaning it's not someone made it up. That when you say hamotzi, in order to say it for other people, not only do you have to have them in mind, and they have to have you in mind. People actually have to listen to the bracha. I see this all the time. People are talking during Kiddush. If it's with kids, if it's with their friends, if it's with hamotzi, they're talking, they're blabbering, they're busy reading a book, or they're doing something, or they're fiddling with something. If you're not listening, how could you have kavanah for anything? Once at my house, I told someone to make Kiddush again.
So what happened?
Not to punish them, I said like you weren't, I saw you were in a different place.
Your cell
No,
phone was
I
ringing.
know we mentioned this before a few years
You're
ago.
texting.
When they were,
Phone's ringing,
when all
trying
the
to cut
Jews
it
were
off.
in Alexandria, and
That's
they would
pretty
down in
embarrassing
the-
to be
at
told
the
to do that.
Stadium, and there was a guy down on the,
Please
on
don't text the
the
kiddush.
ground
With a flag.
with a flag, and then people would say amen when the flag went up.
Yeah, yes, time those blessings were not meant to fulfill their obligation. They're just blessings. You're like when the Chazan repeats the Amidah here, he's not saying the Amidah for you anymore. Really, he's just saying them, and you answer Amen. So what's the
Yeah.
big deal? You heard.
So that was for tefillot, not for.
I can't imagine that worked for something he was saying for you. Again, you have to also look at those ma'ot and say in context. You know, how big is a room in which one person can't hear other people say Amen? So much so you have to have a flag. Is the Gemara trying to tell you, look how big the Jewish community was here? I mean, you have
like
to.
an exaggeration.
I don't know. I don't remember looking in the page over there to see, but sometimes you wonder, like, if you have to take it literally, and if you take it literally, so you do have those halachic questions that you're bringing up. V'yanu achav amen. They have to answer amen. It's not enough they hear. It's not enough they're listening. It's not enough they have kavanah. They also have to say amen. V'af amvarech yazin laniyat amen v'achar כך yirtzah. And also the one who's blessing should listen to their amen. And then cut. Uv'diavad im lo anu achav amen yitzvu yedei chova. And if for whatever reason after the fact they didn't say amen, but they just heard the blessing, it's okay. They still fulfilled their obligation even without saying amen. So there's a lot of discussion why you have to listen to their amen. If you were saying your own blessing, you wouldn't say amen. So why do you have to hear their amen? The Chaonim, they discuss it. I'm not here to stick my hand in that. Okay, we're going to see later a little bit about the halachot, about saying brachot for other people. Let's go on top of the page, 345. If I could throw it out here. When other people make brachot for you, regarding amen, you know you have to say amen. The question is regarding Baruch Hu Baruch Shema. When do you say Baruch Hu Baruch Shema? Let me tell you a few things. Baruch Hu Baruch Shema is an exclamation. When you hear Hashem's name, you don't want Hashem's name just to be hanging in the air, so you say, well, blessed is He and blessed is His name. The Gemara knows nothing about the minhag of saying Baruch Hu Baruch Shema. The Rambam never heard of saying Baruch Hu Baruch Shema. Because of that, in the Yemenite community, there's no saying Baruch Hu Baruch Shemo. You'll never hear among the Temanim Baruch Hu Baruch Shemo. It doesn't happen. Not in Tefillah, never. There's no such phrase.
Yeah, I've heard it.
You've heard it, right?
Or didn't hear it.
And then Rabbi Halevy said, why are you saying Baruch Hu Baruch Shemo? Why aren't you just saying Baruch Shemo? So there's
So
Well, usually it's such Shmo. That's
yeah,
all you
Shmo.
hear.
you're already a few years later. Now it's already Shmo.
Yeah.
Or
Shmo.
soon it's gonna be O. Isn't it?
Oh.
That's
Shmo.
done for Birkat Kohanim. this Beit Knesset.
So that's right. That's a different. It's the same. It depends on the same thing. Maran rules according to the Rosh. The Rosh, the two says the name of his father, the Rosh. That his father, whenever he would hear Hashem's name in the blessing, he would say Baruch Hu Baruch Shemo. Maran records that every blessing that you hear, you have to say Baruch Hu Baruch Shemo. Among the Charonim, there's an argument. When is that referring to? Maran says all the blessings, but does he really mean all the blessings? Because what about the blessings that they're saying for you? Are you now causing an interruption when you say Baruch Hu Baruch Shemo, when the blessing is meant to be said for you? If you would say the blessing, Baruch Adonai Hashem, Baruch Hu Baruch Shemo, Elokeinu melech haolam, Shachar Adonai, you'd be adding words to the blessing that you can't do. So if someone is saying a blessing for you and you add in Baruch Hu Baruch Shemo, then really you're interrupting in the blessing. Among the Ashkenazim and all of the Eastern Sfaradim, the custom is not to say Baruch Hu Baruch Shemo on a blessing that somebody is saying for you. So not by Kiddush, not by Hamotzi, not by the blowing of the shofar, not by anything. In North Africa, unanimously, the minhag was to say Baruch Hu Baruch Shemo, and Maran says on every blessing, Rav Shalom Asas writes, when he came to Israel, it was one of the most heartbreaking things that he heard, that people said Hashem's name and nobody responded Baruch Hu Baruch Shemo. He said, you should know that from the day that I left Morocco and I came to Israel, I never changed one minhag, and especially not this minhag of saying Baruch Shemo. I say it for every bracha. And in my home, that's what we do. We say Baruch Hu Shemo on Kiddush, Baruch Hu Shemo on Hamotzi, Baruch Hu Shemo on everything. So say, don't be afraid to say Baruch Hu Shemo. Chacham Ovadia Yosef scared people that if they say Baruch Hu Baruch Shemo by the shofar, then they won't fulfill the obligation of the shofar. Okay, so over here I always tell people, before I blow shofar, if you want to say Baruch Hu Shemo, you don't do whatever you want to do. But really, you don't need to be afraid. You don't need to be afraid. But that's the story of Baruch Hu Baruch Shemo. It's its own category. It's separate from our name. En levarech kodem sheitfos halechem. Says Maran, you should not make the blessing before you hold on to the bread. Why?
So don't waste time eating it after the blessing.
Say?
So you minimize the amount of time after you say the bracha when you eat it.
You're supposed to say the bracha right before you do something.
Yeah.
So, you know what people do? They take their talit bag, and as they're unzipping their talit bag, they say Litatev b'tzitzit, and then they start undoing their talit, they're flipping it around, and this. You should make that blessing right before you're about to cover yourself with your talit. You have to make a blessing, Rav Soloveitchik once said, you should make the blessing before you do the mitzvah, not before you do the mitzvah. That was always his like that. No, you should say the brachot over l'asiyata, not over l'asiyata.
So would you say the blessing before we put the
right
tefillin
then,
on?
right before you put over your
Not
head.
after.
The
Not
same thing
only
with
do it after,
tefillin.
put it.
When do you make a bracha in your tefillin?
right when you
Right when you have it like
Right, why it runs to the right place before you tighten it, because the mitzvah of
Before you tighten
tefillin,
it up.
the mitzvah of tefillin is when you tighten it. So you have to make a bracha right before you tighten it. But if it's still coming up your arm, you're still not sure where it's going, you can't make a bracha on tefillin yet. Then is when you make a bracha on tefillin.
Yeah.
And so you want to make sure that you're always doing those things right before the mitzvah. So same with hamotzi. You want to be holding on to the bread before you make a bracha of hamotzi. The levush brings a different reason. The levush says the reason why you make a bracha hamotzi while you're holding the bread, here, this chair at the table. Why do you make a hamotzi while you're holding on to the bread? Is so you can make sure that you're having kavanah on this bread. Yeah, those are two reasons given. For me, the first reason says better, but to each their own. Second halakha, Maran writes, Yiten shetei yadav al hapat b'shat bercha. You put both of your hands on the bread when you make the blessing. Sheyesh bahen eser etzbaot, because you have 10 fingers. Keneged eser mitzvot atlut b'pat, which correspond to the 10 mitzvot, the processes of making bread. Ulekach yesh eser tevot b'berkat hamotzi, And it's for that reason that there are 10 words in the blessing of Hamotzi. Ve'eser tevod. By the way, Maran never does this. You should know this is like a very rare thing for Maran to do here. Explains you why. You're doing some kind of covenant. And there are 10 words in the pasuk. Matzmiach chatzir lebehema. Ve'eser tevod b'pasuk, and 10 words in the pasuk. Enei chod elecha yisaberu. Ve'eser tevod b'pasuk eretz chita u'sorah. Ve'eser tevot b'pasuk v'yiten lecha. There's a whole bunch of psukim of blessings that are all 10 words. Like hamotzi is 10 words, like your fingers have 10 fingers, and there are 10 processes to making bread, and therefore you put all 10 fingers in the bread. And if I recall correctly, in the Baladi Yemenite community, they hold the bread not with their hands, but with their fingertips.
No.
Yes? Probably based on whatever is being read here.
Yeah, I was going to say, because it seems like a lot of us are kind of into like potech yadecha mode and closing the fingers and stuff, and maybe we should be like opening them.
Well, no, potech yadecha is something else. That's about not letting your
fingers
hanasa fall through your fingers.
Yeah, right. But you don't
I'll
do
see
it
this
before
one.
the bread.
Potech yadecha, what are you doing with your hands? You crazy? Potech yadecha is
Give away
Hashem.
what you
Open
got.
your hands, Hashem. You're collecting. You want to get some raindrops over there. It's a very late minhag, this potech yadecha.
mean,
Ben
you're gonna give a lot
Chai
of
says
tzedakah.
it's a good minhag. What's the big deal?
One of the things they have to deal with is the tinfoil that covers the challah.
Challah.
You know how they put tinfoil over to keep bread warm before you say motzi?
Ideally,
People
you
do
should
that.
remove all the
Yeah,
coverings.
you never see, everybody does it.
Everybody.
Yeah.
Zev, you must not be in everybody.
Yeah.
I never saw.
You should ideally, and we'll probably see this later,
I unwrap mine. If it's
should
given to
ideally
me,
have the
it's
chalot touching each other and the chalot touching your hands.
communication.
It's a curious thing what people do with that. In general, I never understood how many years am I screaming of not to heat up the chalot on Shabbat. I'm heating up the chalot. Why you put the chalot on top? Oh, I can't eat chalot cold. Let me ask you a question. If you would take pancakes from your freezer and put them in the planta on Shabbat till they were crisp on each side, would you be allowed to do that on Shabbat? You could take slices of bread and toast them on your plata on Shabbat. So why can you make the challah crispy on the plata on Shabbat? Why are you making toast on Shabbat?
Well, it's warm.
Let alone that some people challah. Recently I had a challah. The middle of the challah was dough. It wasn't challah. It was dough. Meaning, technically, you
It's
can
not
roll it
cooked.
again and bake another loaf of challah with it. That person who puts the challah in the oven or the plata on Shabbat, I don't know, you might be baking your challah again. You could argue there's no baking after baking. Yeah, but the middle wasn't baked.
It's half baked.
And it used to be, by the way, that you could say, okay, so when I'm eating my flatbreads, it's not a problem. Our parents took me, he actually didn't take me, he asked me to take him to the Arab market, and we should buy pitot, a bunch of different kinds of pitot that they have. And he cut open the pitot and showed us in the middle there's dough. He said, even the Arabs don't know how to bake pitot properly anymore. It used to be that their bread was baked. He said, now they're so quick trying to get them out of the oven, they're not actually baked inside.
$dollar bills, shekel.
Why people do what they do, I don't know. I don't know why.
Some people look what they do as a craft. Some people do what they do just to make money.
Yeah, about the pita makers, I don't have questions. It's about the Jewish people who make hamotzi, I have questions. Everything we learn about all the slicing of the bread, the holding of the bread, the how they're holding the bread, how your people are answering amen to the bread, everyone making their own hamotzi on the bread. All of these things seem like people just made up their own, covering the bread, uncovering the tinfoil on the bread. I don't know where everyone got their Yahadut from.
12 loaves.
Well, that's okay. Already there, you can say the source for them is Kabbalah. That's where they got it from. Achizat alechem shad b'chad. Let's just do a few more sentences, and then tomorrow we'll be taking apart dipping the bread in salt versus dipping it in other things like you don't have salt. What about hummus? What about something else? We're going to talk about those things at length. And then we're also hopefully going to get to the conversation about talking between the blessing and eating the bread, which most people do. I watch.
They eat the bread.
They make hamotzi. They start cutting the bread. They start humming a tune. They start.
Yeah, because
and they didn't eat bread yet.
Yeah. Well, if it's a big room, you got to wait for the bread to get to you.
He has to eat the bread first. I don't care about
Yeah.
you. He has to eat the bread first. I mean, I care about you. I just
I
not in
understand.
disregard.
Yeah.
צריך שיאחז הלחם, the bottom of 345, the middle actually. יוד. צריך שיאחז הלחם בידיו בשעת הברכה. You have to hold onto the bread when you're making ברכה. ויתן שתי ידיו ועשר אצבעותיו על הפת. You should put both your hands and 10 of your fingers on the bread. ובדיעבד, and after the fact, אם לא אחז בידיו כלל, יצא ידי חובה. Let's say you didn't touch the bread at all, it was just sitting in front of you, you said hamutzi, and then you touched it, also, that's okay. On page 346, under the two lines. ואם היו ידיו מכוסות בכפפות, and if your hands were covered with gloves, צריך להסירן, you have to take them off. Meaning, who's making hamutzi with gloves?
Gloves.
Maybe wintertime.
Fancy people, high society, they wear all kinds of silk gloves, white gloves. When you're making hamutzi, you take off your gloves. From here, maybe is where I saw one of the chawonim write that you shouldn't have a bread in aluminum foil either. Your hands and the bread should be touching each other. I don't remember where I saw it though, so don't hold it as a flirting. ובשעה שמזכיר שם השם, and the moment that you say Hashem's name, יגביהה את הפת, you should lift the bread. You know that? ולדעת רבותינו מקובלים, יגביה את הפת בשעה שאומר תיבת המוציא. And according to the opinion of the מקובלים, you lift the bread when you say המוציא לחם מן הארץ. So according to some chachamim, you lift it by Hashem's name. According to others, you lift the bread up when you say hamutzi lechem min haaretz. Heard of that?
No, but why do you in general, you're not supposed to move when you mention Hashem's name.
Very good. So now you just brought up proof that you should probably be a Kabbalist.